Welcome back to the Fostering Financial Victories podcast. I am joined today virtually once again by Walker Zimmerman and Rob Victor. So I'm excited for this show. This is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So Walker is joining us from Nashville, Tennessee, professional soccer player. I'm going to let Rob introduce him in more detail, but you guys have known each other for quite a while.
Yeah, Walker's a good buddy of mine. He's a Furman Paladin as well. His wife Sally and my wife Carly are super close, and he's a superstar. He won't tell you he's a superstar, but he's a superstar. Plays for our national team. Is currently with Nashville FC, and we really asked him to come on and kind of talk a little bit about his experience. He got drafted early on at 19 years old, so has been a pro for a long time now, and we wanted to be able to do some stuff around pro athletes. And Walker, we appreciate you coming on and telling your story today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. This is exciting times.
Absolutely, man. So, Walker, I think one of the biggest questions that everybody has always asked about professional athletes is around the topic of money. And, you see all of the documentaries of people losing money after they get out of the sport they're playing so quickly. Tell me, man, what has been your experience with kind of setting yourself up, coming out of college at a young age to hopefully avoid any of that stuff?
Right. Well, I think the first thing I would say is the MLS is no NBA, no NFL, no MLB type scenario. But at the same time, it almost makes it even more dangerous. I have a lot of guys who, when I came into the league in 2013, they've been done playing for 6 or 7 years already. They basically had their first contract, and for most of them, it didn't work out. And so, you see it a lot. People make it to a professional level and they just think that, oh, this is going to be my job. I'll be in this career for 10 to 15 years. And they just kind of start spending in a way that is probably reckless for, the amount of money that they're getting, because they think, hey, I'm a professional athlete, just like, these NFL players, NBA players, MLB players. And it's dangerous for sure. So I've seen it. For me, I grew up kind of understanding the importance of money, and the fact that, my dad, he was a pastor growing up, now faith support missionary, relying on other donors to supply a salary. And oftentimes he would have to do extra jobs, painting or doing some yard work for people just to get us that baseball bat for the spring baseball season, or soccer equipment, soccer cleats. So I knew it was very important to save. And I would say almost as a kid, I wouldn't spend money on anything. I'd be holding on to it, and it would just be sitting around. And so I was very, very, very cautious, and that was kind of probably from my upbringing.
So are you still as frugal as you were growing up?
Honestly, I'll never forget the first time Rob, Rob was great, because he took me under his wing. Like you said, 19 years old, I'm off in Dallas, and every 4th of July, it kind of became a tradition where he was always at his in-laws at the lake, and I usually always had a 4th of July game in Dallas. So I would drive that night after the game, show up at their lake house. I'd spend all day the next day just beating him in horseshoes and cornhole and bocce ball, and then he'd give me life lessons about finance. So he basically, I got to the point where I was like, hey, man, at the time I had been with someone else, and kind of transitioned over to Rob at a young age, and he was like, wow, you have really been stacking your chips. You've been saving a lot. He's like, what are you spending money on? I'm like, nothing. I don't eat. I don't do anything. No. So, it's been great to come alongside him and actually have, advice in that arena, and how to make money with my money. And it also just takes a lot of stress off me, knowing that I'm getting that managed and done appropriately. So I would say I've done a good job of saving. Now I'm still frugal, but I definitely enjoy eating out a little bit more. Definitely giving more gifts to people, and just, loving on people, and not holding it too close to my chest like I would have as an 8 or 10-year-old.
Very cool. So, Rob, can you expound on maybe some of the safeguards that you guys approached his career with as you started going through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about professional athletes, and Walker's living it right now, some of them have very short windows. Hopefully Walker's window is an extremely long window. Like he said, I think the MLS is a little bit different than the other major sports as far as money and guaranteed money and things like that. But we've always approached it from a lifestyle, not only now with him and Sally, but what their life is going to look like 5-10 years from now. And I've got to see him grow, get married, and now with their first baby being expected. It's pretty cool to have somebody take advice in a way that hopefully they get to see the benefits of it as well too. So I've been super proud of Walker, and he knows that from what he's done, not only on the field but off the field. He set himself up in a really good way.
So Walker, you mentioned earlier that MLS is a good bit different than the other pro leagues. Do you see that the behavior among your colleagues in that league being so much different than the other professional athletes, or is it just the contract amounts that are the biggest driver of that?
Yeah, I think the behavior is honestly pretty similar, obviously to a lesser degree of what maybe money is being spent on, but it's still this idea of, it's getting designer clothes, it's getting bottle service, it's getting unnecessary expenses that try and fit the mold of being a professional athlete. And that's not everyone, but there are certainly many examples of peers who have probably gone above and beyond their means in terms of trying to make themselves fit into that professional high life status. And hopefully they can continue to play and earn more money and get better contracts, but it's definitely a reality that sometimes it's.
So when you got out of Furman and left the college ranks, is being a pro athlete what you thought it would be, just from a day-to-day lifestyle?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say yes, honestly. There are definitely times where my job is extremely difficult and frustrating and tiresome. But I think I'll never get old or tired of showing up to work, getting to play a game for a living, competing and training every day. That part is amazing. And it's the hours, I can never complain, getting home by 2 o'clock at the latest, And then I think on the flip side of that, and I can't plan a vacation during the year. I can't go to any weddings, any big events, because we're always playing on the weekends. Our day like a Monday where none of your other friends are off of work, and your schedule is pretty much set. Like the day that the schedule comes out for MLS is pretty much the day that we fill in our calendar for the whole year. And so not having like flexibility is, I think, a very frustrating part of the job where, people can be like, oh yeah, like let me just take off work and shoot over to the beach for a couple days. Like that sounds so nice. That sounds really great. But that's just not the reality. So that part gets tough. Not being able to see friends and family as much because you're traveling or just busy. And then the whole part of taking care of your body is another thing. It's fun seeing the rewards that happen when you're eating right, working out and everything, but sometimes you just really want to go off the rails and have, some cheat meals back to back, and that's just a luxury I can't afford.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those cheat meals, that's for sure.
Yes, I know. But you look great right now, by the way.
I appreciate it, Walker. Yeah.
All right, so role while you're playing now, you guys are obviously gotten everything sort of lined up from a savings perspective, and you started really early. It sounds like your parents might have been your role models as a kid from a financial point of view. Is that fair to say, or is there somebody else involved that kind of led you?
Well, in terms of role models, I'd honestly say Rob. I think my parents taught me the importance of money and cost, but in terms of modeling the right way to do it, I would say it was not my parents. I would say the reason why I ended up changing over to Rob was I felt like I couldn't get in touch with the guys that I was working with before. It was always a hassle to even get them on the phone and just try and process things, understand things. And I think Rob really he was someone that was young, and he'd been working so hard to get to where he was. And I obviously Sal and I look up to them and the way that they've kind of gone on their journey of slowly growing their nest and getting all of their finances in order, and just looked at them as a model and seen how hard he worked at a young age, and the importance of not getting ahead of yourself. And so when we talked, and it was great because I could just ask questions that I didn't feel stupid asking, because obviously we're friends before working together. And so I could just talk to him about anything, ask my questions, get simple answers in ways that I understood. And, now it's been fun because as we're getting older, as income has gone up, he's been able to kind of change our strategy and implement new ideas. And it's been honestly just a seamless process of, I'm not answering this the best because I'm just trying to process through it, but honestly, I would say Rob has really been a great financial role model for us in terms of doing things the right way, and then obviously helping us with our own funds.
I appreciate that, Walker. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Walker, what do you envision life being? What does it look like, once you are done playing professionally? What do you want the next stage to look like? I'm not saying when, just tell me what you think.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully it's a long ways away, but you just never know. And I think for me, I've always wanted to be in a position where I don't have to work or don't have to have the stress of working. I know I will be working and enjoying whatever I'm doing, but I don't want to have the stress of feeling pressure to have to make money to continue the way I want to live. And I think honestly, just ideal world is moving back probably in the Southeast somewhere, find a house, hopefully saving up for another place to vacation at, and then just spending quality time with people. I feel like I said, I've missed out on a lot of things. There's a lot of sacrifice that go on in professional sports, things you have to say no to, and I'm ready to be able to say yes to a lot of things. And so it's just prepare myself to get on the golf course whenever I want, playing some member guests, be able to have people over and grill out, stay out late because there's no game the next day on a weekend. Like just little things of spending quality time with people and having a little bit more stress-free life.
Would you say a lot of people probably take a lot of that stuff for granted? Kind of like from my perspective, I'm not a pro athlete, but I was a kid, kind of thinking about, man, I'd love to play pro sports at some point, and now seeing it vice versa, I can see where people might take both of those things for granted. Just in life. Yeah,
100%. And I totally get that. And, it is easy to complain about those things. And I still wouldn't change it for the world, but there is definitely a lot of things that I think people don't think of when they think about being a professional athlete. And that's the sacrifice part of things. Especially when you look back at 2020 and how COVID hit everyone, and not worst of all, but a very difficult time for a lot of people was this past year, because it was a time where you were doing so much individual training of staying in shape and staying fit on your own for months at a time, and having to push yourself to the limit on your own, not in a team setting, not with coaches, looking at you and having to find that from within. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot of mental strength, and I certainly grew a lot from it, but it was a difficult year for sure to have to go through that.
I can see that being a big challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Inside of y'all's immediate locker room, okay, so you're in Nashville now. I know you've played in other places. What does that look like from a dynamic perspective? Do people know kind of your perspective as far as the money management side of things, and do they come to you for advice now, or are you kind of the wise?
Yeah, I will say this too before you answer it, Walk. I've always heard that one thing you don't do in a pro locker room is talk about other people's money.
Oh.
That's what I've heard before. I don't know if that's true because, I'm not a pro, and when I was at Furman, I was not getting paid. So we didn't talk about money at all there. But I've always heard, you don't ever talk about people's contracts and stuff like that. You just play. So it'd be good to get your feedback on that.
Well, I think, I think what is also, this is a great conversation, because it's actually recently the MLS salary guide from the Players Association was released, and it comes out every year, where you can see everyone's salary. And it's just kind of like, it's kind of interesting because you're curious to see what other players that you're kind of comparing yourself to are making, and it helps all the players with their contracts and their negotiations, kind of indexing good comparisons. But the frustrating thing is like, your salary is public out there for everyone. Whereas like if you're in a normal job, no one's just like Googling you and be like, oh, like that's cool, like you make this. And it's just like so annoying to have that out there and have people just kind of know everything about you. So in the locker room, I would say we don't talk about money within our own locker room. But then when that guide comes out, immediately you're like, yo, did you know that so and so is on this? And, like that's either like amazing for him or like how do you get that? It's just like it's really funny to kind of go through it, and guys do talk about it for sure. And then to answer the other part of your question, I would say because soccer is such an international sport and we always have so many international teammates, there are a lot of times where guys will come up to certain players and ask for advice, whether that's a contact. A lot of times it's taxes. Do you have a tax guy? Do you have anyone that can help me manage my money, like kind of situation or like, what do you do? And you just kind of talk to them, and maybe it's so different for them in another country and you're just trying to get them on the same page. But certainly there's good dialogue around making sure that they feel like they're getting taken care of and have a contact in America if that's not where they're from.
You brought up taxes just now, and I know one of the themes of people thinking about with pro athletes is that you end up paying taxes in every state you play a game in. Is that the same for you all, or how does that work out?
It is. And so, again, another learning process that I figured out a couple years in was finding the right CPA for me, and that's someone who's used to dealing with athletes all the time. So I use a CPA who is familiar and not exclusively, but almost exclusively with professional athletes, where they're used to having to file in all the different states that you're getting paid from. So it became easier once I switched over to someone who had dealt with this very, very often. And again, it made the process way easier for me.
Probably a pretty good move to Tennessee.
Yeah, I like the move
from where you are.
Yeah. California to Tennessee was a nice change for sure.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So siblings, Rob, you were telling me earlier, your family has some other
super talented. Walker's super talented brother punted right at Clemson.
Yep.
And his other brother's lights out smart. I think he's probably more talented at every other sport than Walker is. He just doesn't say it. I know he's a better golfer than Walker. So
he is. He's been grinding right now. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So I mean, give us a little bit of give us a little background on the family walk for you, and where everybody's at right now, man.
Yeah. So like I said, two older brothers, and talk about role models. These are my role models for sure. Just the way that they kind of went about their life in a pretty straight and narrow path, honestly. And I'm really close to them. We actually talk regularly. My middle brother, Carter, is living out in Denver. He just had a successful sale of his first company that he was a part of, and is now working hard, kind of leading a division under another company in the real estate market and mortgage, and all of his company was called Lendesk, and they basically are now under like a Rocket Mortgage, Quicken Loans in that whole company. So he's working for them. Oldest brother is teaching in the Atlanta area at Wesleyan and is loving teaching. And I mean, we're super close. We talk actually kind of often about money because we all got some stuff in some crypto. So it's a nice like weekly text of either a rocket ship or something, which is fun just to have a similar investment that you can kind of just monitor and talk about with your brothers is pretty fun.
Yeah, tell us about your better half. Give a little background on Sally.
Yeah, she's the glue man. She's the boss. She's been amazing. What a great life partner, and I'm very lucky that she said yes. So Rob mentioned earlier, we're expecting our first kid in August, baby boy, expected August 9th. So Sally's been amazing, and especially as we enter into this phase of being parents. For me, my dream was always being a professional athlete, like from as early as I can remember. For Sally, her dream was always being a mom. I think really I'm just so excited that that she's entering that phase of life and that we get to do it together, and that honestly that there are going to be so many things that I have no idea about as a father and taking care of keeping a kid alive. And I'm just really grateful that, it's not both of us who'd have no idea what we're doing, but one expert at this point, as expert as you can be without actually having a kid yet. Having her, going to be leading the charge, and me just asking questions and being that sous chef to her is going to be great.
That's great.
What's the criteria on family traveling with you all during the season? Does Sally travel with you to games, and is that?
So yeah, in the past before COVID, she would usually try and make one or two trips a year, just like cities that she would want to check out. We haven't been able to do that last year or this year with COVID stuff and the pregnancy, and but it is fun when she gets to come on the road every now and then with the national team trip. She'll come to those games and try and meet up with. We'll try and get like some of the guys and the wives planning trips at the same time so that they can see each other. So she's got to come to some national team games with some other wives, and that's been really fun for her. She always loves coming, but it's just difficult with MLS. It'd be hard to kind of get there and back. We don't really have time to see them when we're on the road. Because we're usually flying in the night before, and then the day of the game, you can't really hang out with anyone, and then you're flying back right after or the next morning really early. So time is pretty limited to hang out on the road, but she's made a trip or two.
All right, so Walker, if there's one piece of advice you could give to maybe a college senior who's getting ready to explore the next level, what one or two things would you tell them just to prep them either from a lifestyle point of view or maybe a do's and don'ts? And it doesn't necessarily have to be money related, but
yeah,
what would you say?
I would say probably the phrase that it's my self-talk, my self-encouragement, self-motivating phrase that I say on the regular. That's embrace the grind. I know Rob knows that better than anyone. He's also, it might not be public yet, but he's been training for that triathlon that's coming up. Yeah. 2 of them actually. So he's embracing the grind of work and actually working out. So
it's public.
Embracing the grind for me is definitely a phrase where it can apply to soccer, to athletics, but also just the rigors of life and embracing it and welcoming things that are more difficult, because that's going to ultimately help you in the long run, make you stronger.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. We've heard a few times that Rob's training for a triathlon.
Hey, I don't know, but you can't tell I'm training for not one triathlon, but 2.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the 2 yet, so that is new. But yeah.
It is. I don't know how well the first one's going to go, so I was like, I better sign up for a second one.
It's a redeeming one.
You can always drop out of the second one if it's too hard on the first one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's an easy exit plan there, Walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Walker, I've got 2 questions for you, man, and we have asked this to every single person we've had as a guest on the show. First question is, if you could buy anything in the world, regardless of what it cost, what would it be?
My goodness. Probably a private island.
I haven't heard that answer yet.
I haven't heard that one either.
That's good.
But it's got to be super accessible, which means I'd have to also have like my own jet. So those go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, so you get both. I like that.
Yeah.
Buy one, get one.
Yeah.
All right. Next question, man. Last 2 things you spent money on.
My puppy was sick this morning, so I had to go get chicken and rice from the grocery store. But outside of that, wow.
Doesn't spend money.
That's that frugal thing coming out.
What's so funny is like I'm always so food oriented. I didn't want to give you because it's definitely food, but I can't think. I think in terms of meals. I'm like, well, what was dinner? What was lunch? And that's how I think of my day. But outside of food, let's see. What have I ordered off of Amazon? Shoot, this is really bad. It's probably something for the baby or for the puppy.
I would have thought it was that crib, but maybe Sally bought that.
I mean, that was a little while ago. I mean, bigger purchase, yeah, it'd probably be like wallpaper for the nursery.
There you go.
That's getting installed next month, so I'll go with that. But then, yeah, always comes back to food, man.
That's good.
You know, we were joking about this earlier. You know, he's got all these sponsors that he didn't really have to go buy anything.
No.
Right?
No, it's good.
So,
Yeah. It's good.
all right, Walker, let everybody know kind of where they can keep up with you, social media, what have you, whatever you decide to use. Give everybody kind of a feedback as far as how to find you.
I'm the same on Instagram, Twitter, at the Walker Zim. You should also follow at the Puppy Zim. It's a great follow. Bear's my Bernedoodle. She's really cute. Other than that, just tune in. Nashville SC, U.S. Men's National Team, and we got a busy year ahead with the national team. So please support, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it, Walk.
Thanks, Walker. Guys,
Thank you.
appreciate you joining us. You can find us on our website at www.fostervictorwa.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Foster Victor Wealth Advisors. If you've got questions, suggestions, or topics you want us to cover, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again, Walker, man. Good luck for the season, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Walk.
Information contained in this podcast was intended for general use, not to be used as specific advice. For content tailored to your personal situation, please contact one of our wealth coaches.